This is the smartest picture in the world, and at this rate is probably going to be the smartest picture forever. That's Einstein right here, and I'm making videos about all these people. Let's go to this gentleman on the top right. He's standing right next to Heisenberg, and his name is Wolfgang Pauli. He won a Nobel Prize after being nominated by Albert Einstein. Honestly, I wrote this script like 8 times because there's so many interesting stories to tell about him. For example, he was a theoretical physicist, but whenever he entered a lab, technical equipment would just break without him touching a single thing. This happened so often that scientists back then gave this effect a name. They called it the Pauli Effect. I know it sounds absurd, but scientists back then would ban him from entering their labs because they were scared something expensive would break in his presence. And everybody knew about this, so this one time they wanted to make a joke out of it, so they planned for a chandelier to drop and break when he entered the room, but when he actually came in, the rig failed and the chandelier was stuck halfway in the air. He was a very spiritual person. When he went to college, he worked under Arnold Sommerfeld. Now Sommerfeld is very well known and probably deserves his own episode, but Sommerfeld calculated a constant that Pauli was obsessed with. It was called the fine structure constant. Pauli said this, and I quote, "When I die, my first question for the devil will be, what is the meaning of the fine structure constant?" I find constant numbers to be really fascinating, like pi and Euler's number. The beauty of these numbers is even if an alien tries to calculate them, they'll be the same. They're etched in the very core of nature. The fine structure constant can be found in a lot of places in quantum physics. It's roughly equal to 1 over 137. Have that number in mind, and that Pauli said that that would be his first question when he dies. Another thing is that Pauli wouldn't publish a lot of papers. Instead, he would write really long letters to people like Niels Bohr and Heisenberg discussing different ideas. And then people would copy these letters and send them to each other. An interesting story is that in one of the press releases related to his letters with Heisenberg, they would call him Heisenbergs Assistant, and he was really offended by this. He even started to make fun of Heisenberg's unified field theory, which resulted in Heisenberg not attending his funeral, but ultimately Pauli would be proven to be correct. He won a Nobel Prize for his principle, Pauli's exclusion principle. It basically says that particles like electrons have spins and that they can't occupy the same quantum states. Remember these calculations we used to do for elements with the up and down arrows? Yeah, so he basically came up with that. He was also the first person to predict the existence of neutrinos and atoms, which about the topic he said, "I have done a terrible thing. I have postulated a particle that cannot be detected." Keep in mind, by the way, neutrinos are not the same as neutrons. He was a very mystical person. He had more than 1,000 of his dreams documented by Carl Jung, who, if you don't know, was a protege of Sigmund Freud, who came up with the idea of synchronicity. Talking about synchronicity, when Pauli was hospitalized with pancreatic cancer and his assistant came to visit him, he told his assistant, "Did you see the room number?" The room number was 137, and Pauli ended up losing his life in that room. Tell me, have you guys had anything like that happen to you? Basically coincidences that make no sense without any causal relationships. For example, a few days ago I was thinking about somebody and they ended up messaging me without me even initiating anything. Also, like and follow for non-useless content.